Evil Mill mocked me as just a trophy wife at her anniversary party and said cruel things about my miscarriage. Her husband, Phil, shocked everyone with his reaction, and now she's paying the price. My husband, Mark, and I have been together for nearly 8 years, and we are quite happy in our marriage. However, when it comes to my husband's parents, there's always been a bit of conflict. Unfortunately, my mother-in-law, Mill, has always harbored negative feelings towards me right from the moment we got engaged. Phil was sweet, but he would always let Mill walk all over him and mostly kept to himself. Mark comes from a more affluent background than I do, and my mother-in-law has always viewed this as a reason to dislike me from the beginning. She would act like me belonging to a middle-class family was somehow wrong. She would make comments about my looks, my outfits, or my shoes. I admit I was not self-conscious before, but I would always dress up appropriately regardless of who I was meeting. However, it was never enough. Due to her incessant comments, I started to buy expensive clothes specifically to wear on occasions when I had to meet her, so she would not look at me in pity. On one occasion, I wore a white shirt that she had seen me wear a month ago. Mill immediately made a comment about how I was repeating my clothes, and that well-off people don't do this. She sneered at how embarrassing it was. My husband did try to stop her, but Mill would knowingly make these comments in front of everyone, making me red-faced in embarrassment. She would even force me to go shopping with her and would buy me the type of clothes that I didn't even like wearing. However, I would gratefully accept her gestures and thank her sincerely. I always made an effort to nurture a positive relationship with them because I genuinely believed she would eventually warm up to me. But then things started to escalate, and the strings-attached aspect of their generosity became apparent. While we were still less than a year into dating, I got a job in a really good company that allowed me to upgrade my lifestyle significantly. Mark was really happy for me, but when my mother-in-law found out, she was not happy. She started to call me and text me, demanding that I let her know exactly how much I was earning since, according to her, females and their families should always earn less than their men. I was really offended and pointed out to her that I was bound to earn more than my husband in the long run since I work in the pharmaceutical field, which is really lucrative. Mill then told me that I was allowed to do this job if I wanted, but when I got married to Mark, I had to leave it so that other family members don't talk about how Mark is not able to provide. This really made me laugh as it was the 1950s anymore, and Mark never had a problem with my job or my income. I decided to talk to Mark directly about this and let him know how his mother was making me feel uncomfortable. He was furious that she had been contacting me and texting me about all this. I don't know what he talked with Mill about, but she called me screaming and crying about how I was trying to drive a wedge between her and her son and how I was the devil incarnate. She said she would never allow Mark to marry a woman like me and that I needed to up and leave him. I cut the call and blocked her because I was starting to get really tired of her toxic behavior. That was the first major red flag. Of course, Mark and I never broke up, but it did make me wonder about the type of mother he grew up with. Through the years, I could not completely cut off Mill since there were several family occasions where Mark was invited, and I would have to go as well, where she would be there. Mill would completely ignore me and act like I didn't exist. For example, if we walked into Mark's cousin's birthday party, everyone would greet us. Mill would come rushing to hug Mark and ask him about his day. If Mark tried to bring me into the conversation, she would look around disinterestedly and quickly change the subject. The one pattern I began to notice was that she would always bring up her health issues and tell Mark about how she was getting old and frail and how one day she could just drop dead. So he needed to take care of her more, even though she had absolutely no health issues whatsoever and was perfectly fine. It was weird the way she would try to manipulate her own son to get some emotional appeal and attention from him. When Mark proposed to me after years of dating, he invited everyone to our engagement party. My parents and grandparents were really happy for us, but I can't say the same for my husband's parents. Mill came to our party with a sour face, and her face went down even more when she saw the ring on my hand. She started to tell Mark how disrespectful it was for him to buy me a bigger ring than the one she got from Phil. Phil tried to stop her, urging her not to make a scene, But Mill kept saying how her son could not do anything good for her, yet he is doing everything for this poor girl. This pissed me off, so I told her that if she could not respect me, then she needed to leave. Mill was shocked to hear this, but I knew I could not let her ruin the happiest day of my life, and that too in front of my entire family. Phil escorted her out while she kept yelling for Mark, who had my back. Later, Mill called to apologize to Mark, saying how she was drunk, even though we all knew she hardly drank a glass of wine. But because Mill was apologizing to both of us, we decided to let it slide. Then came the planning of the wedding. Mill insisted that she would be included during my dress shopping, saying how she had always wanted to do this. It's important to note that during this time, my patience with her was already running thin, but she was the mother of my fiancé, and I could not blatantly be disrespectful to her. So I allowed her to come. I did warn my mother and cousin about it, so they were ready if she pulled any stunts. Just like clockwork, as expected, Mill had a problem with my dress. She told me how sophisticated people didn't wear so many laces and demanded that I should wear a more traditional white dress. I refused, and my mother told her that I was not her daughter, so she should keep her mouth shut. Mill got pissed and started to pout in a corner with her arms crossed like a toddler throughout the time I tried on clothes. She was nothing but nasty toward my dress choices. In the end, I did decide on a dress, and we paid for it. Mill then came up to me and told me how she was glad that I picked up the dress because it made my arms look fat, and giggled hearing this comment. My mother, who had been incredibly patient, started to yell at her and admonish her for her immature behavior. I was on the verge of tears because no one wants to hear something like that about their dream dress, and I am not even fat, so I could not understand why she would say something like that. We let her know that she was going to have to find her own way back home since I had picked up everyone that day, and I refused to let her come back with us, knowing she would continue to say things about me in the car. Mill started to freak out, saying how I could not just leave her. But that's exactly what I did. While I was on the way to drop off my mother, I got a call from Mark, who started to ask how I could ever do this to my mother and how she had called him crying, accusing me of leaving her knowingly. I told Mark that I would explain everything once I went back home, but he continued to berate me. My mother, who could hear everything since he was on speaker, let him know that he had no idea what his mother had done to us the whole day. She continued to list one by one about how Mill had behaved and, in the end, asked Mark if he thought this is how well-respected adults behave. Clearly, Mark was embarrassed since he had no idea about the whole story. Obviously, Mill had not told him the full picture. Anyways, later when he came back home, he apologized to me again. He told me how he just freaked out thinking his old mother was left all alone, so he reacted that way. I told him that I would have never done something like that had she not been nasty to me the entire day. Mark hugged me and let me know that he would understand if I wanted him to uninvite her from our wedding. At this point, I would have wanted nothing more than to uninvite her, but I was worried that Phil might not be able to come since his wife would not let him attend if she wasn't attending. I could not let my husband's wedding pass by and his parents not be present. I mean, it would be just outright cruel. We decided to talk to Phil before our wedding and informed him that if Mill's behavior started to get out of hand, he would have to remove her. He understood and assured us that he knew exactly what we were going through. I felt bad for the poor guy for having to handle her 24/7. During the wedding, Mill was surprisingly well-behaved. She kept bragging to everyone about how grand our celebration was as if she had paid for anything. It was all me and my husband's wedding fund. Yet his family assumed that since he was from an affluent family and I was a middle-class girl, it was Mill who funded everything. Phil gave a heartfelt toast during the reception, making it clear to everyone that the wedding was funded by us and not by Mill. After the wedding, Mill came up to me and made a comment about how she could not believe I had such a low-quality dress. It was devastating because I wanted nothing more than to enjoy my special day. However, it was hard to completely block out her words when they kept coming in the next day. Later, when we came back from our honeymoon, Mill called me. She kept pestering me with intrusive questions and prying into our private matters. She started suggesting that Mark and I should be thinking about having children immediately, which was very inappropriate. Mark and I had both agreed that we did not want children, and it was something we had discussed thoroughly. Mill's constant prodding about my biological clock and the fact that we should think about having kids right away was beyond intrusive. When Mark confronted her about these comments, she responded angrily and made threats about disinheriting him if he didn't respect her opinion. Mark was fed up and told her she could no longer speak to me. He said he was cutting off all contact with her. Phil had been supportive of our decision and understood why we had to take these measures. Mill continued to try to reach out, but she had no success. In December, we were shocked to find out that we were unexpectedly pregnant. The joy was short-lived as we unfortunately had a miscarriage, which was a difficult time for us. Phil and the rest of Mark's family were incredibly supportive during this period, and we were grateful for their presence and comfort. Last week, Phil invited us to his and Mill's 25th wedding anniversary. We were reluctant to attend due to the recent events, but we decided to go out of respect. During the anniversary party, Mill made a hurtful comment about our miscarriage, saying it was probably a blessing in disguise. She continued to criticize me and make me the center of attention in a negative light in front of everyone. Mark was infuriated and confronted Mill, leading to a dramatic argument. Phil witnessed a confrontation and decided to end his marriage with Mill. Since then, Phil has been staying with us, and he is in the process of pursuing a divorce from Mill. She has been trying to contact him, but he is not reconciled with her. Mark and I are focused on moving forward, and we are both concentrating on our happiness and careers. We have sought therapy to help us navigate the challenges we have faced and are committed to building a positive future together. With Phil's decision to divorce Mill, our lives began to shift once more. It was a period of adjustment, not only for Phil but also for Mark and me. Having Phil stay with us offered a sense of stability and support during a tumultuous time. He was a constant reminder of the kindness and understanding that still existed despite the chaos caused by Mill's actions. Mark and I did everything we could to make Phil's transition as smooth as possible. We ensured he felt welcome and provided him with the emotional and practical support he needed. Phil's presence in our home became a source of comfort and connection. We engaged in deep conversations about our experiences and the complexities of family dynamics. It was a healing process for all of us, and Phil's insights and support helped us come to terms with the events that had transpired. His divorce from Mill was not just a personal decision, but also a significant step towards reclaiming his happiness and well-being. During this period, Mark and I focused on strengthening our relationship and rebuilding our emotional resilience. We attended therapy sessions together, which provided us with valuable tools to cope with the trauma and stress we had experienced. Therapy became a sanctuary for us, offering a safe space to discuss our feelings, set boundaries, and work through our challenges. As the months passed, we began to feel a renewed sense of hope and optimism. The support from Phil, along with our commitment to each other, allowed us to navigate the aftermath of Mill's behavior with greater ease. We made a conscious effort to prioritize our happiness and well-being, focusing on our careers and personal growth. Our decision to remain child-free remained a topic of occasional debate, especially with Mill's continued interference. However, Mark and I were resolute in our choice and maintained clear boundaries. We were determined to protect our relationship from any further external pressures or manipulations. Phil's divorce proceedings with Mill were ongoing, but he remained steadfast in his resolve to move forward. His resilience and determination were admirable, and we continued to support him throughout the process. Despite the challenges, Phil found solace in the friendships and connections he built with us and others who supported him during this time. One evening, as we were having dinner with Phil, he expressed his gratitude for our unwavering support. He acknowledged the impact of Mill's behavior on all of us and commended us for handling the situation with grace and strength. It was a moment of reflection and appreciation, and it reinforced the importance of family and the power of unconditional support. In the wake of these events, Mark and I began to focus on creating new traditions and experiences that were meaningful to us. We took time to travel, explore new hobbies, and deepen our connection as a couple. It was a period of growth and exploration, allowing us to rediscover the joy and excitement in our lives. As we move forward, we continue to set boundaries with Mill and remain firm in our decision to maintain distance from her. Her attempts to reconcile were met with clear communication from Mark, emphasizing that her behavior was unacceptable and that we needed to prioritize our well-being. Despite the ongoing challenges, Mark and I found strength in each other and in the support of those who truly cared for us. We learned valuable lessons about resilience, boundaries, and the importance of nurturing healthy relationships. Our journey was not without its struggles, but it also brought us closer together and strengthened our resolve to create a fulfilling and joyful life. As time went on, we remained committed to building a positive future and focusing on the aspects of life that brought us happiness. We continued to support Phil in his journey, celebrating his milestones and achievements as he moved on from the past. In the end, our experiences with Mill taught us the significance of standing up for ourselves, setting boundaries, and prioritizing our well-being. Mark and I emerged from this challenging period with a deeper understanding of each other and a renewed sense of purpose. We embrace the future with optimism and a commitment to living a life that reflects our values and aspirations. As we look ahead, we are excited about the possibilities that lie before us. We are determined to create a future filled with love, joy, and meaningful experiences. Our journey has been marked by adversity, but it has also been a testament to the strength of our bond and the power of resilience. With Phil's support and our shared commitment to each other, we are ready to face whatever challenges come our way and continue building a life that brings us fulfillment and happiness.